I'm Roy Lee Lindsay with the North Carolina Pork Council, and I want everyone to remember bacon makes everything better.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the David Glenn Show, now seen and heard exclusively here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Our next guest has been the athletic director at Appalachian State University for almost 10 years, and his challenges this fall have included helping his university and his athletic department through the devastating effects of Hurricane Helene in and around Boone and throughout Western North Carolina. He's originally from Binghamton, New York, and he was a college athlete himself, lettering for 4 years as an ice hockey player at SUNY Cortland in New York State. As an administrator, he previously held positions at Lehigh, New Mexico, Missouri, and Syracuse, in addition to working for about a decade in various high-level sales and leadership roles for the sports marketing company IMG College. During his decade with the Mountaineers, he has hired football coaches Eli Drinkwitz and Sean Clark, and men's basketball coach Dustin Kearns, among many others. Just in the past 4 years, Kearns has led App State to its first conference championship and NCAA tournament bid since 2000, and its first regular season title in the Sun Belt Conference, which happened earlier this year. The Mountaineers also have won 4 of the last 8 Sun Belt football championships, counting a couple of first-place ties in the standings, and they have played in 4 of the 6 Sun Belt football championship games, winning 2 of them since that postseason format was adopted back in 2018. We are speaking, of course, of App State's AD, Doug Gillin. Welcome back to the David Glenn Show. How are you?
David, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you as well, and over many years at this point. Many of us across our great state, Doug, saw photos of King Street in Boone truly underwater back in late September. I know that area. You know, my daughter Avery spent the last 4 years there. We saw videos of the devastation all across Western North Carolina, but you were there. You lived it. What is the best way to describe to outsiders the severity and the extreme nature of what y'all went through at App State and really around Watauga County and all of those surrounding areas?
Yeah, I think it really is hard to describe. And part of it is, when you were in it in our community and certainly different parts of our community, Boone was not as bad, certainly, as some of the outlying communities. But one of the interesting parts about it is when you're in it, you really didn't know how bad it was everywhere else because the communications were down as well. And some of us that had maybe cell service, a lot of us didn't. A lot of us didn't have power. You'd have friends texting or saying, man, I'm seeing this really bad there. And, outside, you could see what was outside your window, but you didn't really know what was going on around. But certainly as it became more apparent, people got out and about. Certainly the relief efforts started. You started seeing the devastation. It's really hard to describe.
You oversee an athletic department with 17 varsity sports, 400 plus athletes. In what variety of ways did your Doug Gillin team or the university more generally have to assist and help those 400 plus young people during and in the aftermath of Helene?
Well, I think, from a university as a whole, and certainly then, the athletic department first was trying to make sure you could find everybody and make sure you could knew where everybody was and that they were safe. And if they needed anything, we had just in the athletic department, a number of folks that, their houses were, flooded, condemned, couldn't live in them. We had to find places for them to be, et cetera. So that happened, certainly in the athletic department as well as the university.
We were scheduled to bring our North Carolina Sports Network to Kidd Brewer Stadium for that September 28th home game against Liberty. Of course, that was the one you had to cancel because of Helene. Do you carry disaster-type insurance for such things? And how do you put in perspective the impact of your famous football program as such a huge revenue generator on your athletic department as a whole, missing a football game and having its season interrupted?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I got to give Jonathan Reeder, our deputy athletics director, all the credit this summer when he came to me. We haven't always, years back we had we had with a separate hurricane, a Southern Miss game here that was canceled. And so we haven't always carried insurance, but this summer he came to me. He's like, we need some insurance. We need insurance. And while I was a little skeptical spending the money, we did it. And, certainly thankful that we did. When you look at a football game here, it's significant. It's multiple millions of dollars of revenue that are lost when we don't play football here. And so we're going through that process right now with the insurance company, and thankful that we had it, and looking forward to hopefully being able to recuperate as much as possible from a lost revenue standpoint.
You're a lifelong sports guy, so you know that sometimes we in the media, or even you, I guess, can be accused of being kind of corny or exaggerating when we suggest that sports can be a unifier of people, or maybe, help rally an injured community in some way. What was your sense of how App State sports specifically, or App State University more generally, have been able to contribute to either lifting the spirits of people in Western North Carolina, or helping with what everyone hopes is an eventual return to something like normalcy?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different angles there. As we were trying to decide if and when we could return to playing a home football game here, I think in some ways we were kind of fortunate in that we were heading on the road. We're heading on the road to Marshall. We're heading on the road to Louisiana, right? In the aftermath, and then we had a bit of a bye, and then the question became, could we host Georgia State here some 3 or 4 weeks afterwards? And in a couple different angles. One was, I think people just wanted to be around people, and you could feel that when we came back and played that first game here. We played it early at 1:00 so folks could get in and get out. We didn't, the roads were still in bad shape, still are in bad shape. But we also saw what the business community was going through. The business community here October is a big time of year for a lot of different reasons, not just App State football, but leaf season, et cetera. And most businesses lost all of October. And so in some ways, I thought we could play a little bit of a catalyst in that, in folks coming in. And we encouraged folks when they came in to, make sure you grab lunch, breakfast, dinner at a local establishment on your way in and out of town. And so those kind of key factors, but we wanted to do it thoughtful, respectfully, and certainly safely, and make sure that we weren't, being conscientious of what was still going on in certainly the outlying areas. But I think probably one takeaway for me was just the fact that people just wanted to be around people, and that was good to see.
App State Athletic Director Doug Gillin is joining us here on the David Glenn Show on the North Carolina Sports Network. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, you were part of that difficult decision to eliminate 3 App State sports programs: men's soccer, men's tennis, men's indoor track and field. As you contemplate maybe another massive jolt to the college sports model with the NCAA's proposed House settlement of that lawsuit, and maybe even as soon as next year, Doug, the name, image, likeness money could come straight from the university's athletic department to the athletes rather than from third parties. With all that in mind, how do you foresee the Mountaineers handling the maybe new millions of dollars of expenses that are related to all these changes?
Yeah, well, it is a challenge, just like COVID was a challenge, as you mentioned. It seems like sometimes you just kind of feel like you're getting your footing, and then something changes. And as I told our coaches yesterday and our student student athlete advisory committee on Tuesday night, this is revolutionary in college athletics. What's going on right now?
Yeah,
and we've kind of had, you mentioned COVID in the last 4 or 5 years. It's been just one thing after the other. This is going to be really expensive. If you're at App State, you're thinking about, like, how can we continue to be competitive but stay in our lane? We can't spend money we don't have. So for us, it's going to be continuing to find different revenue streams as we can, but also continuing to be judicious with how we spend our money. And what I'm talking to all of our coaches about is how do we, how can within the framework of your budget, can you do some things differently to allow for increased scholarships? With baseball scholarships as an example, going from 11.6 to 34.
Yeah,
we can't do that. We can't make that jump. But could we be something better than 11.6 if we kind of readjusted our money, Our coaches got to go out and help us raise more money. And then we have to continue to raise more money. So I think all of those, there's a lot of different factors, trying to create different revenue streams, trying to be more judicious, and then coaches being part of the solution as well. So all of that's in play. I think, like I told our folks, like App State, we're going to adapt and we're going to be competitive. And so we're working on those plans right now.
When I think of the current climate for name, image, likeness, I imagine some of the same App State boosters being asked to contribute the traditional way, maybe the way they have their entire lives to your booster organization, but also the same people getting phone calls from the NIL collective. Do you have a general number that helps describe how much an App State, the outside collective, raises in a given year and spends on your athletes? And can you tell at this point, are some of those dollars going to that collective, not going to the App State Sports Booster Club?
Yeah. I mean, the number, I don't have the exact number in that, because a lot of folks are like, well, you could just do this or do that. I'm like, well, we've been trying to raise money around here for a long time.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Yosef Club, we've grown the Yosef Club to the most members, most dollars ever raised. Every year we set a new record. And so then you just added this extra bucket that you need to fill. And you're exactly right. We don't want to keep going back to the same folks we have, unfortunately. But we also got to keep having more folks get on board. And we have had that as well. And so I think for us is continuing to sell the story and the vision, and the student athletes and education is still changing lives. And when we're in that business here. So I think for us, it's stay in our lane. When you start hearing these crazy numbers, we can only do what we can do.
Yeah.
And if that means we're not going to be as competitive as we'd like, then we got to figure out how to do more, how to, rebuild the mousetrap. But I think right now we are in as good a place as we can be, and certainly in our peer set in terms of the money that we're raising, the amount of folks that have helped us with our collectives. But also, when it comes back in house, we got to make sure we're cognizant of Title IX and make sure that we're doing it the right way. And I think we have pretty good plans in place to do that. Again, we're always on the street raising money to help us continue to maintain comprehensive excellence.
Speaking of crazy numbers, I have fans ask me this question all the time, and I have to say I'm not an athletic director. I've covered college sports for a long time from a lot of angles, but I don't have the on my desk numbers that somebody like you would have, or even back of the mind numbers sometimes. But I had a group of 5 coach, a fairly prominent one, say that it takes him $1 million in name, image, likeness money just to re-recruit his best players to make sure they stay on his team the following year. That's before you try to lure any players or transfers with name, image, likeness money. Does that number surprise you? Does that fit, what works, how things work in, say, the Sun Belt or at App State specifically?
No, the number doesn't surprise me. And the number, whether it's probably in the ballpark of what Group of 5 schools are going to need to be doing. And certainly, when you look at the Autonomy 4 schools and what they're doing, is whatever that multiple is of that. But when we look at, we're talking to, we haven't lost a lot of folks in the portal and in the NIL world so far. But when you look at what Jalen McLeod's doing at Auburn, and you look at what Nate Noel's doing at Missouri, and then, I was talking to a wrestling coach, we have folks that are wrestling, an All-American that's wrestling at, well, I think not All-American, top 10 in the country, wrestling at Minnesota, wrestling at North Carolina. So, you look at across the board, it's expensive to keep certain student athletes here, and some that you just might not be able to do it.
If any of the things that you would list as the most fun aspects of your almost decade at App State come to mind, please volunteer those while you answer this next question. But from the outside, one of the most fun aspects that I've observed in your lengthy time at this point in Boone has been the cultivation of concerts at Kid Brewer Stadium. You mentioned new revenue streams earlier. I don't even know how the athletic department directly or indirectly benefits from these concerts. So, I invite you to share that if you can. But the proud App State product and country music star Luke Combs performed there, Darius Rucker, I know Brad Paisley, there are others. what role has the athletic department played in making those things happen and become a reality during your tenure? And I am not sure where the money goes, but how have those events provided a significant boost to your athletic department revenue?
Well, I think there's two things. One is, you have your football stadium that's not in use really in the summer. And so there's an opportunity to utilize that asset for concerts. And I think, there's certainly the tangible revenue. Concerts aren't a huge moneymaker. We've certainly found that. We work really closely with our folks on campus, with the Schaefer Center folks that do a great job with that summer and bring folks in here. But one of the ancillary benefits that we've been able to see is folks that come and get to engage on a non-game day, more of a relaxed atmosphere. Nobody's going to win or lose that day. And so you get to have a lot of our friends and families come in and get to engage with App State, get to be at the stadium. And I think those benefits carry forward. And it's hard to say, well, that helped us raise X amount of dollars. But I think it allows folks to come in and enjoy Boone, Appalachian State University, certainly our football stadium in different ways. So we're going to continue to do that, continue to, if there's unused assets like a stadium or an arena or a ballpark, that we can figure out different ways to maybe monetize it moving forward. And we do a lot of that. We got the Boone Bigfoots that play up here in the summer. That helps our baseball program, and that's kind of a non-traditional revenue stream. So concerts, Boone Bigfoots, different ways. Those are the type of things we're looking forward to continue to grow.
I know you and your wife, Leslie, have raised 3 children for much of their childhood there in Boone. What else is on your fun list as you reflect on this almost 10 years there?
Well, I think you're right. There's the fun list. Yeah. As you mentioned earlier with your daughter, I mean, whether it's going to baseball or going to volleyball or, now my daughter Shay's looking at colleges. So you've been through that process. Now that's the fun list of, just got in here, just got in there, got to take a trip here, got to take a trip there. So yeah, this is an amazing community. Would not want to raise my children anywhere else in America. And it's been just an absolute blast.
In sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. When it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. The North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network. I am a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she does not impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com. Another part of your tenure, and I don't know what was in place when you got there, but a kind of another either expanded revenue stream or a new revenue stream has been, essentially the royalty type stuff, right? I mean, There is an App State logo everywhere now. It's like NASCAR, wine, bourbon, barbecue sauce, coffee, beef jerky, right? Like you have a partnership with Luke Combs along those lines. You have a partnership and a collaboration with Eric Church, another App State guy. Give us a sense of that. And I assume that benefits the whole university, but maybe indirectly your athletic department.
Yeah, absolutely. We started that way back when I got here, and we started with Eric Church and Mountain Born, a little mountain, and then we kind of grew the Mountain Born collection to everything that you've mentioned. It's been different folks at different times. Luke, when he's not the Luke of today, he probably outgrown our little royalty deal. But we're again trying to create different avenues to get the brand out there. Part of it's brand awareness, part of it's royalties. And from a licensing standpoint, that has been a huge revenue source for us. The brand is everywhere. It's nationwide in a lot of different forums. So we continue to grow that. We just, we started working on with our Yosef's Locker. We call it Yosef's Locker here in our stadium. That's, a bricks and mortar, 365, 7 days a week here. And so we're continuing to try to get creative, different. And then that has really been probably, we've probably seen a 400% increase in our revenue royalties over my time here.
Among the higher priorities in your job description or NEAD really is finding the right coaches for your especially your revenue producing programs. I mentioned Dustin Kearns. I mean, first NCAA tournament bid in a long time, first Sun Belt regular season title. That hadn't happened in any of your conference affiliations for a long time. So that's your hire, Dustin Kearns. That seems like a big win. I know the Eli Drinkwitz story was a little bit unusual because he was only with you for a year, but that was one heck of a year. And that was your hire as well. And of course, I mentioned in the intro, Sean Clark, your other hire in the two high profile sports. In a general sense, when you think of those three guys or even those you hire in the Olympic sports, what are you looking for when it comes to a good fit for App State athletics?
Yeah, I think somebody that fits within our community, within our athletic department, certainly wants to do it the right way. Understands that sometimes you have to be patient. Also understands that we don't have all the bells and whistles here. So sometimes you have to roll up your sleeves and a little bit higher and get down in the mud a little bit deeper to recruit. And then you got to recruit, quality student athletes that can compete in the classroom first and foremost, and then on the fields and courts, et cetera, of play here. And what we've been able to find is folks that really kind of fit us. They want to work hard. They love Boone. They want to raise their families in Boone, or they understand, cross country. We've hired two great cross country coaches, just won Coach of the Year and the Sun Belt Championships, a couple of weeks ago. Those Brad Herbster, we hired him from Pitt. He's won the conference championship 2 years in a row. So folks that, want to compete at the highest level, want to win conference championships, compete in the NCAA tournaments, but really that are really good people. And I think you can do a lot if you're just a good human being, and willing to work hard. And that's what we really try to find.
Backing up a little bit to the money side of things, you had those many years at IMG College, which I think now is under the Learfield Sports umbrella. ISP, as it was called, you worked with as well in prominent positions. When it comes to your partnership right now with Learfield, I know when I come to Kid Brewer or see a basketball game in Boone when visiting my daughter, of course, there's traditional logos at your venues. There's now some logos on your uniforms. What other kinds of innovative things in that partnership have you been exploring or maybe even implementing as you try to balance the budget there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, one of the things that we're going to be communicating with our fans is, now you're going to have field logos. That's never happened before, and we will do that. Now, we won't do jerseys right now. We have got a great relationship with Nike. We're just about ready to announce our extension with them, which has, been a great partnership for App State. But you're going to start seeing different, maybe a little more corporate. And part of that, you're going to see across college athletics. You've already started to see.
Yeah.
I never thought you'd see logos on the fields or jerseys, et cetera, but that's coming. And part of it is as a way to continue to fund comprehensive excellence. So we're going to need to do that. It's going to be a little more corporate, but we're going to try to do it tastefully and make sure the brands that we align with are brands that have the same values as us. But you're going to start seeing a lot of different things. We started seeing, whether it's spirits in the stadium or a couple of years ago, we started serving beer in our stadium. So there's things that, we've kind of been slow to, maybe following behind the pros, but now you're going to see it's going to be just like the pros in terms of corporate involvement.
Like you being a transplant from New York State, I'm a transplant from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. And one of the fun things I've done over the years is just ask some of my friends and relatives from my childhood what their view from afar is of fill in the blank. It could be Duke basketball, App State football, or anything that I've covered here for 30 plus years now. And when I say App State, they mention FCS national championships, They are aware of your brand as a football program, and a prominent one that's way up there in the wins, not only FCS amazing accomplishments, obviously, but during your time there, I have mentioned on my show 100 times, up there with the Alabamas and Ohio States and, the mega powers of FBS, there's the App State Mountaineers with the most victories in that top 7 or 8 or whatever it is right now over a decade or so. So I view part of your role as essentially being the caretaker of your athletic department's crown jewel, this football program, as many other wonderful things that App State has to offer in and beyond sports. So with that in mind, the Mountaineers are 4-5 right now on the gridiron. This is maybe their second mediocre season in the past 3 years. What can you share about the nature of your conversations with your fifth-year head coach, Sean Clark, specifically, or maybe more generally, just how you evaluate what that program needs to deliver given its status as, of course, the number one generator of revenue that pays for all 17 sports on campus?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, one of the things that Sean and I always talk about is, we're always evaluating, what are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? He's evaluating, he's watching tape, he's watching film. So he knows what's going well, what's not going well. When him and I meet, it is, you mentioned 4-5. We're not used to being 4-5.
Right.
In my 10 years here. So this is a place that, we don't have a lot of experience being. And so those conversations are more like, how are you going to fix it? Like, how can I be helpful fixing it? So that we can return to, what we're more used to. And I think those are conversations that we have, if not weekly, as often as we see each other, whether it's before or after a game. And it's not, right after the game, it's usually the following day or two, just like, hey, what went right, what went wrong? The thing that still remains positive, our fan base is amazing. We're going to be sold out every game this year, including the James Madison game this coming weekend. So I think, our fan base, is continuing to stick with us. We need to continue to evaluate and perform. And then we'll continue for the next couple of weeks to see what we can do to kind of keep this thing, maybe get a little bit of a run here at the end. And then what does it look like going into the offseason?
Whether you are moving locally, nationally, or even internationally, and whether you're a residential or commercial customer, please consider our friends at XL Moving and Storage, an award-winning Allied Van Lines agent with offices in Greensboro and Raleigh. Thanks to their 25 years of experience helping North Carolinians all across the state with their moving and storage needs, XL has become the trusted hometown North Carolina moving services company. Our good friends Jim Dorsett and Jody Hatley, along with their hardworking staff, offer customized, tailored relocation and storage solutions to the people of North Carolina and beyond. Visit them online today at xlms.com. That's EXCELMS.com.
This segment brought to you by our great friends at Atlantic Tire and Service, where DG and his family take all of their vehicles for routine maintenance, service needs, and a world-class selection of new tires. Atlantic Tire and Service, your one-stop tire and auto repair provider with highly trained technicians and a sales and support staff that are second to none. They've grown to 6 Triangle area locations, 2 in Raleigh, 2 in Cary, 1 in Durham, and 1 in Wake Forest. You can learn more online at AtlanticTireOnline.com.
Elsewhere in our state, we saw a coaching change at ECU at midseason. We saw a coaching change at Charlotte at midseason. So those are two of there's 7 FBS programs in this state. 2 of them made changes at midseason. Do you think seeing more and more midseason changes, that this is a reflection of the urgency of just the financial strife that's going around in college sports? And I don't remember you ever making a midseason change in any sport, but what is your philosophy just about how the appropriate way to handle all of those things?
Yeah, and I think every situation is unique. And so not to speak of anybody's situation, decisions that they make. One of the things that we've always tried to do is just evaluate throughout the season. We're not, and then at the end of the season, make decisions. I do think, the way that I look at it now is you got once this football season's over, and for any school in the country, you got a 7-day dead period before the portal opens. You got some time to do some evaluation, some retention, look at your current roster, those type of things. And I just personally feel that that's enough time to, our kids are still playing hard. If they weren't playing hard, and maybe, but and Sean's coaching hard, our coaching staff's working hard. They're trying to do the right things and get us, back on track. So for us, always has been evaluate throughout the season, discussions at the end of the season. We'll do the same this year.
Last thing for Doug Gillin, because I think I've hit my time ceiling. Sorry about that. Be as brief as you need to be on this one. The longtime leader of your university, Sherry Everts, resigned earlier this year. When I think of big decisions in sports at any university, I think, of course, of either the president or the chancellor, some other administrators, and, of course, the athletic director is central to all of this. I don't know Dr. Heather Holbert Norris at all, interim chancellor at App State. But how does this change in leadership influence your role or strategic planning as the athletic director, if at all?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, the leader of the university is the leader of the university.
Yeah.
And so I think anytime you have a leadership change, it's a big decision for those that are going to choose the next chancellor at App State. Dr. Norris has done an amazing job as an interim and has been totally supportive of intercollegiate athletics at App State and the role we can play at this great university. And so, but yeah, it's a big deal. We're continuing to do what we do and look forward to but right now things are going great. So we're just keeping our head down. And Dr. Norris as an interim chancellor has been amazing.
Well, the Glenn family thanks you as a representative of App State University for Avery's 4+ year experience there. She officially graduates, Doug, roughly 30 days from now. She's already been through the walking graduation ceremony. We were there for that, of course. But I know you personally were not directly involved in Avery's experience there, but I am saying thank you to you as a representative of the Mountaineers, because we're always going to feel a part of your extended family. And of course, I do thank you personally, specifically, for 10 years worth of visits here on the David Glenn Show.
Awesome. Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. Take care.
We'll see you. Yeah.
And thanks to all of you from App State Nation or beyond for joining us today on the North Carolina Sports Network.